ideas and heartful lifelong learning. Branches of Wisdom is a series of intimate conversations with the world's most influential authors and visionaries. We explore spirituality and the human mind, ecology and culture. Most episodes are recorded with a live audience. You can join our live events and submit questions to your favorite guests. Check out our upcoming schedule at banyan.com. Since 1970, Banyan Books has been a rich oasis at the crossroads of wisdom and philosophy, offering resources for humanity's evolving paths. We're a locally owned, independent bookstore in the heart of Vancouver's Kitsilano neighborhood. Visit us in person or shop online at banyan.com. Please subscribe, follow, like, and leave your reviews for the podcast. And now, enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Branches of Wisdom, the Banyan Books podcast and streaming series. I'm your host, Ross McKeachie, and we have a wonderful guest today, Sandra Ingerman. Before we begin, Banyan Books acknowledges that although we have people joining us from all over the world for these live streaming events, the physical location of Banyan Books is on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Most of Banyan's podcast and event series are free. We welcome your donations to keep these programs accessible for all. Just go ahead and click on the PayPal link in the show description below. Also, toward the end of our conversation with Sandra Ingerman today, we'll be taking some of your questions. So go ahead and type those into the comments field on YouTube. Sandra Ingerman, MA, a world-renowned teacher of shamanism, is recognized for bridging ancient cross-cultural healing methods with modern culture. She's taught for 40 years, including worldwide workshops on shamanic journeying, healing, and reversing environmental pollution using spiritual methods. Sandra is a licensed marriage and family therapist, professional mental health counselor, and a board-certified expert on traumatic stress. Watkins Mind, Body, Spirit magazine honored her by including her in their 100 most spiritually influential people of 2020. She was also chosen as one of the top 10 spiritual leaders of 2013 by Spirituality and Health magazine, and was awarded the 2007 Peace Award from the Global Foundation for Integrative Medicine. She's authored 12 books, including the now classic Soul Retrieval. Since the 1980s, thousands of people have healed from past and present traumas through soul retrieval, the classic cross-cultural shamanic healing method Sandra teaches. She also has a weekly 30-minute podcast she hosts in partnership with Renee Baribeau called The Shaman's Cave. Today, Sandra Ingerman is with Banyan Books in conversation about her book, co-authored with Lynn Roberts, titled Walking Through Darkness, a nature-based path to navigating suffering and loss. Every one of us experiences periods of pain and loss in our life, dark nights of the soul. In Walking Through Darkness, legendary shamanic experts Sandra Ingerman and Lynn Roberts help us forge a pathway through the dark as we embrace nature as our guide and healer. If you would like to learn more about Sandra and her work, you can visit her website, sandraingerman.com. So Banyan community, join me in a warm welcome for Sandra Ingerman. Hello.
Hi, Ross. Hi, everyone. It's such a delight to be here today.
Oh, it's so nice to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So Sandra, this book provides a perspective on the dark night of the soul in the shamanic tradition. I'm curious if you can clarify for us, what is the meaning and significance of this initiatory experience from the shamanic perspective?
So in shamanism, ceremony is so important. Ceremony is what creates a sense of stability, a sense of centeredness, a sense of groundedness inside of us. And so in shamanic cultures, as you go through different periods of your life, different phases of your life, we're born into this world and a ceremony is done. It's seen as an initiation. You left the world of spirit and you took a body. And so this is initiation into a new phase of life. And then you grow into puberty, and that's an initiation into a new phase of life. And you get your driver's license, you graduate school, you get married, all the different things that show us in life that we've entered a new phase. And so in shamanic cultures, that's seen as an initiation. We're leaving a part of our life. So as a child, we're leaving a part of that behind as we start to step into a place of being an adult and having new values and new ways of seeing the world and perspectives. So that's an initiation. Every time we change a phase in life, we go through an initiation. And an initiation really honors the change, the new phase that we're starting to enter into our life. But what we don't understand in the Western world, in our culture, is that typically whenever we go through an initiation, and we're going through a global initiation right now at a massive level, whenever we go through an initiation, it means a part of our ego needs to be stripped away so that our full beauty, our full light, our full wisdom, what we were passionate about coming into this earth, why were we born, those initiations where our ego is being stripped, creates the space where we can go within ourselves and remember the truth of who we are.
What are some of the markers that I might look for that would show me I might be entering a dark night of the soul phase?
Well, something that would seem like a loss to the ego. So, losing a job, a partner leaving you, an accident, a health crisis that comes in, a financial crisis that comes in, anything where you're experiencing a loss. And so, if I can just back up for a second and say the reason that I wrote Walking Through Darkness is that we used to have elders who used to tell us, they used to rock us in rocking chairs and tell us, when you start to enter dark times, challenging times, life-changing times, where you're experiencing some kind of loss in your life, this is what you do. This is how you get through it. These are the steps. This is what we've always known. In our culture, we don't have those elders anymore. Some of us lucky ones did, but most of us don't. And so all of a sudden, we're thrown out into the universe. Life is stable. And all of a sudden, you show up at work and you're told you lost your job. Your partner comes home and says, we're done. A health crisis, all of a sudden you're feeling fine and you get a test and you're shown that you have a health crisis that you're looking at. And so we don't have roadmaps now. Elders didn't say, when these things start to happen to you, this is the roadmap. This is the tools that can help you go through this. And so for me, I've been through so many initiations in my life, starting with being hit by lightning as a child. I've had near-death experiences, which is an initiation with every element that we have on the earth. And so when I went through my big initiation 9 years ago, I felt like I was in a plane at 35,000 feet. Somebody opened up the doors, threw me out, and I felt like I was in the darkness with no flashlight, no map, no tools, no water, nobody telling me what had happened. And so that's what's happening to so many of us right now. That's the marker, Ross, that you're asking for. That marker is you're going on in your life, and all of a sudden, a big change comes in where you have no roadmap. You have no understanding, no tools of how do I move forward, instead of just sitting down in the dark and saying, it was like being in the lockdown in a pandemic. That's what a lot of people do in an initiation. They just go to bed and sit down in the dark and say, I'm just going to put the covers over my head and wait till this is over. But the universe is actually asking us to stand up in our true power. And the universe is actually asking us to not sit down in the dark, but to keep moving forward while we let go of our past traumas, we let go of what's been burdening us, so that we can open up to a new phase of life. So the dark night of the soul is to strip away our old false identity so that we can remember the spirit that we were born with, the passion we were born with, the destiny that we were born with. That's the whole purpose of an initiation. So the marker is when you start experiencing loss, you're going through an initiation.
One of the things I want to ask you about is darkness. So I'm just going to share a quote from the book, and that leads into a question. Near the end of the intro in the book, you write, "There are endless books and courses on how to stay positive, but this book is about the beneficial aspects of darkness. Darkness is filled with exquisite teachings for brave souls who are willing to let go and travel to the depths of our inner world to see what states of consciousness and ways of behaving need to be removed, transformed, accepted, acknowledged, or discreated." I'm wondering, can you expand on this point for us a little bit and just tell us, what do you mean by darkness? Where are we going when we go into the darkness?
Yeah, so as you said in the introduction, a lot of my work is on reversing environmental pollution, reversing pollution inside of us, reversing pollution in the planet. And so in that particular work, everything for me is about the positivity, about hanging on to the light, be positive, stay inspired. But sometimes what happens when we do that is, for some of us, we stay on the surface waves. We swim in the nice waters, the nice warm waters, and we're buoyed up, and we're experiencing the sun and the laughter and the joy. And that's really wonderful. That's what we all want. But we also came in here, everybody who came in here consciously for what this time is about. And so what this time is about is not swimming in the surface waters, but going beyond the surface waters. How deep can we go into our inner landscape? because in our landscape, which is a reflection of what we're seeing in the outer world, everything in the outer world is a reflection of our inner world. This is the oldest spiritual teaching in every single spiritual tradition. The outer world is just a reflection of our inner world. And so our inner landscape, what is your inner landscape like? Is it filled with weeds? Is it filled with old memories, old traumas that are acting like a burden? It's almost like you have this giant 1,000-pack on your back that if you would just take it off, your walk would just be a little bit easier. And so the darkness provides this place where the silence really takes us into the beauty of who we really are. And it takes us into the magic of spirit. So, just to give you an example of this, again, everything out there is inside of you. So the place where I love in the unseen worlds to work the best is what's called the void. The void is the place right before creation. It's the most fertile part of the universe, but yet there's nothing there. The Buddhists talk about it as nothing and everything at the same time. And it's such a fertile place. It's where I do all my creation work. It's where I do all my manifestation work. It's a very powerful place to create. It is the most fertile place. So we have that darkness, that fertile place inside of us, but we oftentimes choose to just stay. How positive can I be? How inspired can I be? Instead of going inside of us and really exploring what parts of myself have I left behind because I'm afraid of being judged. So many of us are not willing to be creators of the world or step into our full power, because society put us in a box and said, don't dream too big, don't shine your light too big, it's just going to get you into trouble. And so we believe that, and we don't allow ourselves to be the creative people we came here to be. And so the dark night of the soul is that rich, it's so rich, it's so filled with a fertile place for us to see what's lacking inside of us, what seeds we need to plant, and what plants we need to remove that aren't leading us to the life that we came in here to live. And so the darkness is, for me, the darkness is a time out. So when I physically go on vacation, I go to the outer reaches of the earth where I can be in darkness and silence, because that's where we get to know ourselves. That's where we actually find ourselves. And once we find ourselves in the darkness, then the light shows up and shows our path out, so that we could live the life again. I keep repeating this. We live the life that we came in here to live. I hope that makes some sense.
It definitely does. I want to take the position of someone who's maybe entering a period like this, and let's say I've never gone into my darkness, and it's scary. I'm feeling I want to avoid this. How do you suggest people begin if they've never done this kind of work before and they find themselves entering this very challenging phase of life?
Well, the absolute first thing that I would do, number one, is to know that you're you're in a really great place. You're in a fertile place where something magical is going to happen. And when you come out, you're going to be changed in a good way. But you don't know that yet. It's just me telling you that. Nature is the best way to learn about the shadow and the light, to learn about how they're both neutral, how one is not better than the other. When you go outside and you look down, if there's no shadow, you don't exist. You actually can't see yourself. The shadow has to be there in order for your form to even exist. And so, by working with nature and by actually watching how the storms come in and then how the sun shines and brings life back to earth again, you start to understand the phases as you start to watch the seasons. In fall, we have to let go of what's not working for us anymore, what needs to be composted back to the earth, our old dreams that never manifested. We have to sweep our house so that our house is clear to start creating again. And so when you spend time in nature and you watch the winds and you watch the winds come up and the winds die down and you watch the sun come out and the darkness come in and you watch all the different changes of the afternoon to dusk to night, and you watch the seasonal changes of letting go in the fall, and then that beautiful hibernation period of the winter, and then the new birth that starts to come in the spring, and then the full blossoming of winter. That's your life. And so it's nothing to be afraid of when we don't walk with the phases of nature, when we don't walk with the changing phases of the light and the shadow. What happens is we end up walking against the river of life, and the stress of walking against the river of life is what makes us ill on every single level. And so I find that by just sitting in nature and watching the beautiful things, the things that disturb us, the storms, animals fighting with each other, we learn a lot about life, and we learn how to engage in it more. And if I can say, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of students. I've taught for 43 years. Right now, the only classes people want to sign up for are classes that get them in touch with nature. Everybody seems to know that they're missing a big piece of life. And part of that is understanding that nature is always changing. Nature is changing every second. And beauty always comes out of the death. And when we watch nature and we realize that we're nature beings ourselves, it brings us comfort to just understand that there's a natural flow of life. And that wherever you are, no matter how turbulent it is, there's going to be a phase of that nice, smooth ride down the river where you can just relax and look at the beauty. So it's just relaxing into change. And the more we fear it, the harder it is. It definitely gets hard when we fear it. And I'm here to tell you, I'm 71 years old, and the darkness is the safest place that you can ever go to, and the most comfortable place. And there's so many articles written about the power of being in darkness and how once people find it, they actually don't want to leave it. It's a place of comfort. It's a place where you're cared for. It's a place where you're held by the moon, by the stars, by the cosmos, by all of life. It's a place of beauty, and most of all, it's a place of healing.
Hmm. You mentioned there that people only want to sign up for courses to do with connecting to nature. One of the noteworthy things that comes up in this book is the idea of species loneliness. I wonder if you can explain what this means for us, Sandra.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing it right now. I think we all are in looking at different news stories and stories on Facebook. Um, People are getting pets that uh, and some people kind of rail against me when I say this. A lot of people are getting chickens as pets, and but people come back to me and say, "Well, I'm a chicken farmer, and so I'm happy to have a chicken as a pet." I'm talking about people who live in cities who are not on farms. They're getting chickens as pets. They're getting bunnies as pets. Um, People are on Facebook. This is my hardest thing on Facebook is people are saying, I saw a raven come and swoop right in front of me. What does it mean? And we're asking humans what animals are trying to communicate with us. We're asking humans instead of talking to the raven. You're asking me what the raven was trying to tell you. We're so disconnected, and people they want to know. They hear that science is finding that plants talk to each other, and plants talk to trees, and plants talk to the animals. How do I talk to the plants? I don't know how to talk to a plant. I don't know how to talk to a tree. I don't know how to talk to a raven. That's what I mean by species lonely. People want to have a connection with other creatures. I call them nature beings. I don't have to go through every being that lives in the water, the air, and on the earth. I call everybody nature beings, and it's all of nature that lives in all the elements. And we're all reaching out right now. We want to understand what we're saying, they're saying to us. And that's what I mean by being species lonely. We're asking other humans what nature beings are trying to communicate with us right now because we want to hear so badly. And we want to know what's going on for them. And people are on Facebook now. There's just pages, and I have one too, where we just share beautiful, unusual pictures of nature. And it just brings people so much joy to realize, wow, we have this web of life, all these beings in the web of life we know nothing about, and we want to know more about them. There's a curiosity right
I just want to remind our live audience we'll be getting to some of your questions towards the last 15 minutes of our conversation with Sandra today. So go ahead and keep typing those into the comments field on YouTube. Sandra, that makes me think of omens, and that's one of the things you touch on. Can you explain the significance and power of omens in helping to guide us through confusing or challenging times?
Yeah, omens I love working with omens. An astrologer once told me, a Vedic astrologer once, he looked at my palm, he said, "Oh, you're an omenologist." I didn't know what that meant. But what happened to me is back in the 1980s, again, I started practicing shamanism in 1980. I was just in my 20s. I was 29 when I started teaching. And, so I was growing up like everybody does in their 20s and 30s. And I kept getting hit over the head with a 2x4 by the universe. I kept making errors and it was like whack. And so one night I got up and in my room and I said, would you stop hitting me over the head with a 2x4? And would you start showing me signs when I'm making the right decisions and when I'm moving the wrong way? And as soon as I put that out to the universe, it was really amazing what started happening for me. Um, all of a sudden, I started getting omens, constant signs. Omens are signs. And so the examples I like to give is you're taking a walk in a park through a city or out in beautiful national park in nature somewhere, and you're thinking about making a choice in life, and it's cloudy. And as you start thinking about one particular choice that you want to make, all of a sudden the clouds part and the sun comes out. And all of a sudden, if you notice, you're getting an omen that you made a good choice. This is a tool that you get in the dark night of the soul, how omens can keep you moving forward because they tell you you're on the right path, go right, go left. Um, uh, Oftentimes, people are in a bank, standing online at the bank, and a person turns around and says something to them. And that was actually an answer to a question that they've had for years without knowing it. That person just synchronistically turned around and said something that answered a question for somebody. That's also called an omen. You're walking down the streets of New York City and a dragonfly lands on your shoulder or a butterfly lands on your shoulder. That's an omen. Nature is trying to contact you and say hi, or you're taking a walk and the wind just kisses your cheek. You know how it does that, or it plays with your hair. Wind is saying hi and it's saying you're going in the right direction. If it's blowing you, if it's blowing, resisting you, it's letting you know you're on the wrong path and you need to change direction. So, what happened for me, because depression has always been a part of my life, the dark night of the soul part of my life, is that omens opened me up to the magic of life. They brought me a joy that every time I go outside, I'm going to see different insects. I'm going to see the sun acting in a way, the clouds acting in a way, the wind, where every step that I take, if I ask a question, nature is going to show me some little sign that says you're on the right track, or nope, move another direction. And all of a sudden you realize you're not alone. You're always being taken care of, and that your path is always being shown to you. And it just drops you into the magic of life.
Something I wanted to ask you about, you touched on the fact that depression has been something you've experienced as part of your dark nights of the soul. I know a number of people right now that have experienced suicidal thinking, and I know that you had some of that as a teenager as well. Can we talk a little bit about what's behind that and how people can address suicidal thoughts?
Yeah. Um, we all go through traumas in life, and so they lead us to places of depression and oftentimes suicidal thoughts. And for me, learning shamanic journeying was what helped me personally. Because shamanic journeying is a ceremony where we actually let go of our ego part of ourselves and we open up spiritually to this whole world of divine helping spirits who just volunteer themselves to help us get through life. They won't stop us from getting our hard lessons, because that's how sometimes we learn, but they will guide us. And so for me, meeting up with helping spirits who were able to speak to me about my depression and speak to me about my suicidal issues. And so everybody's different, and what we all need is different. I'm a person who I need support and I need love, but I also need tough teachers. I need teachers who say, pull up your socks. And those are the teachers I get in my shamanic work. And so I have a helping spirit who's been with me for 43 years now. He's never given me a wrong answer for myself or a client. And he used to say to me back in the 80s when I met him, you know, we're just getting so tired of you. One day you want to live and one day you don't want to live. And one day you want to live and one day you don't want to live. And he said to me, would you just make a choice already? We really don't care. We don't care if you stay here. We don't. And we don't care if you leave. But we're getting tired of this. I want to die. I want to live. No, don't take me, please. And so, you know, my spirits have really gone in and they've stood up and said, okay, you don't want to be here, you can leave. One of my near-death experiences was climbing Mount Shasta to the top. And Mount Shasta is my power spot. And so when I journeyed to her afterwards, she said, you're always asking to leave. I was just trying to help you out. So, what that takes us to is it takes us to where we really have to make real choices. And we really have to explore, again, initiations. Feeling suicidal, feeling depressed is an initiation. One of my divine teachers, I work with the goddess Isis, she said to me that I just don't see life as an adventure. And it's true. I don't see life as an adventure. So things really touch me a lot deeper. And she'll say to me, you're going through an initiation when I feel suicidal or depressed. And I say, well, I don't think I'm going to live through it. And she'll say, Sandra, if you thought you were going to live through it, it wouldn't be an initiation. So life brings us these circumstances. When we get depressed, when we get suicidal, what is the trauma? What happened to us? What's bumping up against our ego that's really pulling us down? And is it a positive thing? Like we were talking about the positive of being in the darkness, the positive of being depressed or feeling suicidal is it can take you so deep into yourself that once you go that deep, you actually find your spiritual light that pops you out of the place that you're in. For me, in shamanism, we talk about a cause of depression, a cause of suicidal issues is what's called soul loss. And that's what I wrote my first book on, was on soul retrieval. When I had my first soul retrieval, when I taught my first student how to do a soul retrieval, and there was nothing else left but for her to do a soul retrieval on me, that was when my depression and suicidal tendencies left. So there are shamanic healing methods that really help with this. And so for anybody out there who would like to explore, besides any kind of therapy that you're doing, the power of shamanic healing, I have resources for trusted practitioners where you can get some help for yourself.
You have a website that lists shamanic practitioners all over the place, don't you?
Yeah, all over the world. And because of what happened with the pandemic, most are seeing people physically, but also doing remote work. So right now it's easy to find a practitioner. It's shamanicteachers.com, and it links to my webpage. So if you're suffering, if you're really feeling suicidal, reach out, reach out. There is help. There is help that you can get.
In your work, do you ever find, are there dark influences, like other, like, there's helpers and allies? Is there ever dark influences that are infiltrating people's psychic space and thoughts with this kind of thing?
Yeah. So from a shamanic point of view, when everything goes right, and yes, there is a belief that everything is perfect. I do teach that everything is perfect and everything is right. But we do know that there are things that go wrong. And so when everything goes right, when we die, we transcend to the transcendent realities, to the divine world again. In Western civilization, everybody wants to go up. In shamanic cultures, the lower world was a beautiful place to also go to at the time of your death. And so when everything goes right, we transcend and to a place of love and to the divine, and we lose our body. Um, but what's known in shamanism is that sometimes a soul, when we die, it's our soul that transcends. Sometimes the soul gets stuck here. And there are certain reasons the soul can get stuck here. One, the death was so shocking that the person actually doesn't know they're dead. And that's actually incredibly common. You see that in terrorist attacks, airplane crashes, train crashes, things like that, where you journey. The crash happened 20 years ago, and everybody's standing around wondering where the ambulances are. And you're trying to explain to them that they actually died and they don't believe you. And sometimes you have to take them home and show them how their family has moved on. And so, in those circumstances, a soul gets stuck here in the middle world. And one of the roles of the shaman is what's called a psychopomp. A psychopomp is a Greek word for leader of souls. Hermes was the great psychopomp. And so one of the roles of the shaman is whenever a person dies is to make sure that they had a good passing, they had a good crossing, and that they're in a transcendent place. And if they're stuck in the middle world, the shaman has to do some psychotherapy and help them to understand they're dead, and call down a loved one. I'm giving a short course here, a call down a loved one to help them go into the transcendent realms. And so with stuck souls, you can end up with a stuck soul in your house, a ghost who's turning the heat up and down. You know those stories. Or it could be on the land, just um, uh, living on the land. Stuck souls are often in bars and hospitals. And so if you are missing a lot of your soul, um, one of those middle world spirits that's stuck here might go, oh, there's an empty apartment in you. I'm going to move in and I'm going to share your body with you. And if that being is a real suffering being, you're going to feel that suffering. You're going to feel suicidal. You're going to have different personality traits that are similar to the person who is sharing your body. And so, again, in shamanism, it's the job of the shaman to do depossession, move the body, move the stuck spirit out of the body, move the stuck spirit out of the building, move the stuck spirit out of the land, and then psychopomp it, move it to another spiritual level where there are beings there who are waiting to take it home.
That sounds like a tough job.
It's actually not. It's actually amazing work. There are some of us who are so addicted to psychopomp work. It's unbelievable. My helping spirit actually told me one of the reasons he taught me soul retrieval was because I love taking people over to the other side, and because I was so suicidal. He thought a really good healing for me would be to teach people, to bring people back from the other side back into their bodies again. And he thought that that would be a really wonderful thing for me to learn how to live a good life, which it was. But it's hard work if you can't, if you take on the suffering. But if you can see it as you're freeing a person who's been stuck here and in the wrong place and wants to go home, then what more beautiful work can you possibly imagine doing? There's so many of us who really love doing psychopomp work, and it's really important work. A hospice worker who I used to know, who's not with us anymore, she used to say that the more that we can release stuck souls from this realm, the clearer we can all live our lives, because the forces of the dark souls that are stuck here do affect the consciousness of everybody in our collective. And so it's important work to move people who don't belong here anymore to the transcendent realms, and those of us who are in Earth School, and while we're alive, we're in Earth School learning how to evolve and to create and to live out our passion. Those are the lessons for us. But once we die, it's time for us to go home. It's no longer our time to be in Earth School.
Thank you for that. Is it okay if we get to some of the audience questions now, Sandra?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. There's one here from Liz that says, do you have a sense of the meanings or purpose behind the collective dark night of the soul we are in worldwide and politically? Do you have seeing or predictions for the collective future?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on this briefly of we're going through a collective initiation right now. And what we're being asked to look at is our selfishness, our greed, how we're treating the earth and all of life. And so when I talked about initiations of being a time of stripping the ego, basically I was talking about the time that we're living in. It's a time where we're really being asked, are we loving ourselves, and are we loving all of life, and are we honoring all of life? And we cannot say yes to that. We cannot say yes. And so we're being, by the universe and by our own souls, by our own spirit that's trying to get us to evolve, we're all being pushed into the dark night of the soul to learn how to grow up, to learn how to treat ourselves and all of life with respect. And so I feel that one thing is, Isis always says that the future is created from the present. So don't get too much into the future, because how you're acting in the present right this second is what's creating the future. So I really don't get into making predictions based on what she shared, because our present can always change. But I'm a person who watches patterns, and from what I can see and from what my talks with the spirits and my walks in nature and all the downloads that I'm getting, is we're in this period, and having our ego stripped is not comfortable. That's all I have to say, is it's not comfortable. It does create suffering and loss for all of us, but it's so that generations in the future are going to have a better life. So I do see tough times for us ahead. But again, I absolutely believe that we all chose the time that we wanted to be born, because we had certain work to do. And the work that we're doing now, all the inner work that we're doing now, whether you're going positive or whether you're going deep, deep, deep into the darkness, all the inner work that you're doing now is going to create a good future for our descendants.
Thank you. And thanks, Liz, for that question. There's another one here from Sabina, who says, can nature's drugs like peyote help us and lead us out of various states of our darkness, not numb it as modern medicine prefers to do first? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm asked this question a lot. I've been on a lot of summits around using plants for medicine. And I grew up in the 60s. And so I started doing LSD when I was 13 years old. I started smoking marijuana at that time. I have a long, long, long history with psilocybin. It's my ally. Peyote is actually not my ally, but I love the plant. It's beautiful. What I have found in my 71 years of life is that the plants are great door openers. They're amazing door openers for us, but we still have to do the hard work of learning how to change our behavior, learning how to change our actions moment to moment, not just in the morning while we do yoga or while we meditate, but that we actually understand we're spiritual beings who came here to live a spiritual life every second of the day. And so how do we bring our spiritual practices into every second of our day? And so the plant spirits can open us up to showing us visions of what our life can be. Plant spirits can take us really deep into our shadow and force us in ways that are not comfortable to do our shadow work, really making us work through our obstacles and how we're self-sabotaging ourselves. And so they're door openers. They show us amazing things. They give us, you can ask anything and get any answer, but you still have to come back and live your life and do the hard work.
Thank you. And thanks, Sabina, for that question. There's a comment and then a question from Bethany, who says, Sandra, I do this work and am called a death walker. Have been doing this passage of souls for many years now. She's referring back to the talking about, yeah. And then says, question, do you use essential oils as a tool for assisting the dead? And if so, which oils? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm actually not an essential oil person, but I do know people use oils to assist the dead, but I'm sorry, I'm not educated on that. I just work with journeying. Yeah.
There's another question from Sabina, and it plays off of the first question that we had from Lynn. It says, we hurt greatly by destroying nature. We're taking away our very own medicine. How can we collectively face darkness and become resilient at this time of the planet's polycrisis?
Well, I think that we have to, number one, we have to acknowledge how much we've disconnected, and not through blame. Again, we're here in Earth School, so we're here to learn. Many years ago, I actually became possessed in some level by this group of beings called the Ancient Ones, and they were billions of years old. They gave me I have so many downloads. A publisher was actually going to publish a book of my downloads. The Ancient Ones gave so much information. And what they said is that the Earth is billions of years old. We know the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. You lie down on the Earth and you connect your heartbeat to that 4.6 billion year old Earth. Your life changes forever if you do that. And so what the Ancient Ones told me is that the Earth doesn't even know that we're here. We're only here for a billionth of a second is too long of a description for how long we're actually here. And so it's not the Earth who's suffering, it's we're suffering from our behavior towards the Earth. And it's the results of climate change, all the suffering that we're going through and have to go through due to climate change. But I feel so strongly that every person who goes out and gives thanks to the sun every day for giving us the life that we need to thrive. We don't get life from electricity, we get it from the sun. And if we go out every single day and give thanks to the air for giving us life, air was the first living being. The elements are sentient beings, they're living beings. The earth was the first living being that welcomed you into the world. Nobody did. When you took your first breath, it was with air. Air welcomed you into the world, and air's the last being you say goodbye to. And if we thank the water for giving us the life that we need, we're 70% water, if not more, and thanking the earth every single day for the abundance of beauty and the abundance of food. So I have this simplistic theory that I've been sharing for probably 15 years now, that if every single person on the planet got up every day and gave thanks to earth, air, water, and the sun for their lives, we would actually be able to heal what's happening on the planet right now. I absolutely believe this with every single part of my cells, every part of my body, every part of my mind, every part of my spirit. We have no sacred reciprocity. We don't say thank you. We need to start saying thank you to the beings that give us life.
Well, I want to thank you, Sandra, for being with us today, and to our live audience for all your questions. We've been speaking to Sandra Ingerman about Walking Through Darkness, her new book with Lynn Roberts, a nature-based path to navigating suffering and loss. Sandra, before we go, do you have anything you want to let people know about? I know you've got an audio version of that's related to this book coming out soon, don't you?
Yeah, so in July, through Sounds True, I recorded, I think it's about 10 hours. It's digital, so you'll be able to get a digital recording, through whatever site that you like to buy from. It's about 10 hours, and it's me talking about the dark night of the soul, but leading really long guided journeys. So even if you know nothing about shamanism, I'm guiding you all the way. really long guided journeys to the depths of the darkness to learn about the gifts that want to come out and what you have to let go of. And so we walk through the dark night of the soul together through this audio, and we go out into the light together. And then at the end, I share some material from my Medicine for the Earth work that I haven't shared before, just with a very, very small group. So it really takes you through the darkness and then some really big work to help you manifest the life that you've always dreamed about.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's called Polishing the Path of the Soul, and it will be out in July through Sounds True.
Okay, well, we'll look out for it. Any closing thoughts before we part ways?
Well, I just want to say to people that I really understand the depths of what people are going through right now and what people are feeling. We are in such a rich, fertile time. There is a lot of goodness that's going to come out of all the negativity and the challenges of what we're going through. Just remember that everything that isn't challenged doesn't grow, ends up dying. So we're in a real growth cycle right now. We're being challenged to the max. And so whatever you do, don't sit down in the dark. Go out into nature, talk to a friend, take the smallest step forward, the smallest step forward. We're all doing brilliant work right now. Whatever you're doing is great. Don't push yourself too hard. Pace yourself, trust yourself, and learn how to love yourself. If you learn how to love yourself, you'll learn how to love the earth. And from there, everything gets taken care of. So I just want to say abundant blessings to everyone. And I love you. And thank you for your bravery during this time. We're all walking together. Don't forget that.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you, Ross.
Thanks for joining us for Branches of Wisdom, a podcast of Banyan Books and Sound, Canada's spiritual and healing resource since 1970. Our podcast producer is Jacob Steele. The show is edited by Abdo Habani. Watch all our conversations on YouTube by searching for Banyan Books, or listen on your favorite podcast platform. Please subscribe, follow, like, and leave your reviews and comments. We love to hear from you. For all our live events, books, and more, visit us at banyan.com.